talk about Harry and Meghan because they weren't there, and they've bemoaned to People magazine that they weren't invited to Trooping the Colour. And they did announce just hours before Kate's big return that their lifestyle brand is now doing dog treats and raspberry jam. I'm not sure how productive this venture is, Dee Dee, because it seems to just be jars of jam that they're sending to their famous mates who then post them on Instagram. Is that really a sound business model?
I don't think it is. Here's the other big problem with it. So there was this news that Meghan had apparently invented some new incredible new jam.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it turns out that it was raspberry. Up until that point, she'd only done the strawberry. But it gets worse. She's only made 2 jars of this raspberry jam. But look, jokes aside, she wouldn't have given a flying about the Trooping of the Colour.
Yeah.
But Harry would have, because his military service was always incredibly important to him. And, you know, he served 2 tours of Afghanistan. To not be invited and to not be part of that would have really hurt him. And for Kate, and I think this is a big part of the reason it was so important for her to be there, from her point of view, was that she's, I think, an honorary colonel of the Irish Guards. And she wanted to be there in order to thank those people for their service.
Yeah, I didn't realise that. And there wasn't much build-up. I think she announced it the day before that she was going to be there. So
yeah, which is extraordinary, because with anything royal, the planning happens, you know, weeks, months, if not years in advance. So they obviously were doing as much as they could to be able to fit her into that day. Yeah.
And I think she also mentioned that she's just going to do more as she feels fit to do it.
Yeah.
So obviously it's still, the treatment is still having, as it would, a cancer treatment, having quite an impact on her.
I do think, and I absolutely agree that she should be allowed privacy while she goes through the treatment, but I do think it would be helpful for her at some point to come out and talk about what her experience has been. We still don't know exactly what has been wrong with her, because I think that would give strength to other people who are going through.
I think she will. I think maybe at the end of once she's through this, she may open up about precisely what happened. Now to Sydney, and a comedian, Jerry Seinfeld, fired back at an anti-Israeli protester who disrupted his show last night.
We have a genius, ladies and gentlemen. He solved the Middle East. He solved it. It's the Jewish comedians. That's who we have to get. They're the ones doing everything. Yeah, go ahead, keep going. They're going to start punching you in about 3 seconds, so I would try and get all of your genius out so we can all learn from you.
He makes a good point there. Why is his show being disrupted by these pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli protesters? Is it just because he's Jewish? Are Jews not allowed to be pro-Israel without having their livelihoods impacted? It seems very strange to spend presumably hundreds of dollars to buy a ticket to be there, and then to pull that.
Well, it shows their lack of power in this situation, that they have to use Jerry Seinfeld in order to amplify their message that they want. But the thing that I found really interesting with that clip that we've seen was the reaction from the audience. And I think what that does is sum up the way people are feeling. We're not without compassion. Anyone who's going through a war in their homeland, we certainly feel for them. But don't bring anger and don't ruin someone's night in order to make your point. I think people are getting very sick of protests and of people being persecuted and made to feel fear here in Australia, which is a peaceful country. Don't bring a war from somewhere else into our country. And that was an example of it happening at that show.
Absolutely. There was not much support for him at all.
No.
Now, an explosive new book into David and Victoria Beckham's marriage is about to hit the shelves, and it's casting doubts on the loved-up couple, the image they portrayed during that Netflix documentary Beckham. Tom Bower will allege Brand Beckham is basically a business relationship as opposed to a happy marriage, with separate PR reps who wage media wars occasionally. And this all came about after David's infidelity. We've heard all about that. And they stayed together, apparently, Dee Dee, to protect the brand. Now, I know you love the doco, you've watched it.
Yep.
Do you buy this interpretation of what their marriage is?
No, I don't want to hear a word against Posh and Beck. So I was I was just watching a nice little Instagram video he put up. He was growing some spring onions for Victoria.
You are buying the Beckham propaganda
The
completely.
previous one, he was growing her a beautiful pink rose and she was out there with him in the garden. Look, my first thought when I saw this story was this was some sort of dispute between these two when they were living on separate continents doing their particular jobs 9 years ago. And I just thought, if this is all this Tom Bauer has got, to bring up a fight that this couple had 9 years ago, he got nothing. The documentary is everything. You will not damage Brand Beckham any worse than they did themselves with that vile wedding they had, you know, with the purple and the regal. Yeah.
No, I don't memory hold that. Dee Dee Dunleavy, thank you so much for your time
My
this evening.
pleasure, Rita. Thanks for having me.